Welcome to Daily English Listening. In today's video, we're going to listen to a time management topic featuring the story of Elias and Sarah's time management. Time management is the deliberate process of planning and controlling the time spent on specific activities to boost effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. Let's delve into the foundations of time management. At its core, time management is about maximizing a limited, irreversible resource. Time is often considered one's most valuable asset, because once lost, it cannot be recovered. Mastery of time management involves several key pillars. The first is prioritization, distinguishing between urgent and important tasks to ensure high-value work is completed first. Next is goal setting, using frameworks like SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, to provide direction and motivation. Another pillar is planning and scheduling, utilizing tools such as Google Calendar or daily to-do lists to allocate specific time blocks for both work and rest. Why is time management essential? Efficiently managing your schedule offers significant psychological and professional benefits. One benefit is increased productivity. A clear plan allows you to focus on execution rather than deciding what to do next, raising output quality and quantity. Another benefit is stress reduction. Proper planning helps avoid last-minute rushes and anxiety, ensuring deadlines are met comfortably for a more balanced life. Improved quality of work is also key. When tasks are not rushed, the chance of making mistakes decreases, resulting in more polished and professional results. Finally, greater opportunities arise. Punctuality and reliability enhance your professional reputation, often leading to career advancements and personal respect. Now let's explore some practical techniques for success. To move from theory to practice, you can adopt several proven strategies, such as the Pomodoro technique. This involves working in focused 25-minute intervals, followed by a short break to maintain high mental agility. Task batching involves grouping similar tasks, like responding to all emails at once, to minimize the switching cost of moving between different types of work. The art of saying no means understanding your capacity and declining excessive commitments, which is vital to preventing burnout and maintaining focus on primary goals. Delegation. Assigning less critical tasks to others allows you to concentrate on high-impact responsibilities. Time management for students. Students face unique challenges balancing academic, social, and personal responsibilities. Efficiently managing your schedule offers significant psychological and professional benefits. Breaking down large projects into smaller chunks makes them less daunting and helps combat the temptation to procrastinate. Ultimately, time management is not about working harder, but working smarter. By implementing structured planning and setting clear priorities, you can reclaim your schedules and achieve your goals. Now let's listen to a story about time management, the tale of two blueprints. Elias and Sarah were both commissioned to design a grand library for the same city. They were given exactly 6 months. Elias was a grinder. He believed that passion was fueled by pressure. For the first 4 months, Elias spent his days in, quote, research, which mostly looked like sipping espresso, scrolling through architectural forums for inspiration, and waiting for the, quote, perfect spark. Elias believed that passion was fueled by pressure. For the first 4 months, Elias spent his days in research. By month 5, the marinating turned into a panic. Elias began pulling all-nighters. His desk was buried under crumpled paper. Because he was rushed, he stopped double-checking his measurements. He skipped lunch, snapped at his assistants, and lived in a constant state of emergency. He was working 16 hours a day, but 4 of those hours were spent just trying to remember where he left his pen. Sarah was a builder. On day 1, she didn't look for inspiration. She looked at her calendar. She broke the 6 months into tiny, digestible phases. Weeks 1 to 4 were for foundation and structural constraints. Weeks 5 to 12 focused on interior flow and aesthetic. Weeks 13 to 20 were for refining and technical drafting. Weeks 21 to 24 were buffer time for mistakes. Sarah worked strictly from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At 10 a.m. every day, she turned off her phone for deep work. At 5:01 p.m., she closed her laptop and went for a walk. Her friends thought she wasn't taking the commission seriously because she seemed so relaxed. The day of the presentation arrived. Elias walked in with bloodshot eyes. His design was breathtakingly creative, but as the judges looked closer, they found catastrophic errors. He skipped lunch, snapped at his assistants, and lived in a constant state of emergency. He was working 16 hours a day, but 4 of those hours were spent just trying to remember where he left his pen. The staircases didn't align with the second floor. The budget was triple the limit because he hadn't researched material costs. He had managed his tasks, but he hadn't managed his energy or his focus. Sarah walked in refreshed. Her design wasn't just beautiful, it was executable. Every bolt and beam was accounted for. She even had time to create a 3D model because she finished her primary drafts 2 weeks early. This video will explore the lesson of time management through the story of Elias and Sarah. The city chose Sarah's design. Elias complained that he didn't have enough time, while Sarah walked away with the contract and a weekend trip. The moral is that time is a flat plane. You can wander across it until you're lost, or you can build a road that takes you exactly where you want to go. Time management isn't about being a robot. It's about being the master of your own story so you don't end up a secondary character in someone else's schedule. We begin with Chapter 1, The Philosophy of Time, Why We Struggle to Exist in the Now. In our story, Elias lived in the tomorrow. He believed that his future self would be more inspired, energetic, and capable than his present self. This is the first great fallacy of time management, the temporal discrepancy. We treat our future selves like superheroes who don't need sleep or coffee, while our present selves struggle to even start the car. Next, let's discuss 1.1 time as the ultimate currency. The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." If someone stole Elias's drafting table, he would call the police. Yet, when social media or aimless research stole 4 hours of his morning, he felt no sense of loss. To manage time, we must first define it. It is the only resource that is perfectly non-renewable. You can earn back lost money. You can regain lost health. You can even repair broken relationships. But a Tuesday afternoon, once spent, is gone forever. This realization is the internal clock that Sarah possessed. She didn't see time as a void to be filled. She saw it as a bank account with a daily deposit of 86,400 seconds and a balance that resets to zero every midnight. Next, let's look at 1.2, the paradox of choice in the modern era. Elias struggled more than an architect would have 100 years ago. Why? Because of the paradox of choice. In the 1920s, an architect had a drafting board, some pencils, and a physical library. Today, Elias has the entire history of human architecture available in 3 clicks. This infinite choice leads to analysis paralysis. When we have too many options for how to spend our time, we often choose the path of least resistance, distraction. Time management, therefore, is not just about doing things. It is about the courage to exclude. To say yes to a grand library design, Sarah had to say no to 100 other good ideas that would have cluttered her blueprint. Moving on, we discuss Chapter 2, the evolution of productivity, from the sun to the silicon chip. To understand why Sarah's 9-to-5 worked and Elias's all-nighter failed, we have to look at how humanity's relationship with the clock has evolved. We begin this chapter with 2.1, the pre-industrial rhythm. For most of human history, time was cyclical. Farmers didn't have deadlines in the modern sense. They had seasons. They planted in the spring and harvested in the autumn. Time was measured by the position of the sun and the ringing of church bells. There was no procrastination because the work was dictated by survival and nature. If Elias were a medieval farmer, the rising sun would be his alarm clock, and the setting sun would be his log-off button. Next, 2.2, the Industrial Revolution and the Machine Age. Everything changed with the steam engine. Suddenly, work wasn't tied to the sun, it was tied to the factory whistle. This is where we developed the hours equals value mindset. If a worker stood at a loom for 12 hours, they produced 12 hours worth of cloth. Elias was a victim of this industrial mindset. He felt that staying at his desk until 3 a.m. meant he was being productive simply by being at work. But Elias was a knowledge worker, not a factory laborer. In knowledge work, the intensity of focus matters more than the duration of presence. Sarah understood this. She knew that 4 hours of high-intensity focus, or deep work, was worth more than 12 hours of tired, distracted pseudo-work. Next, let's explore 2.3, the knowledge economy and the digital blur. The city chose Sarah's design. Elias complained that he just didn't have enough time. Meanwhile, Sarah walked away with the contract and a weekend trip to the mountains. We now live in an era where work follows us into our pockets. The 9-to-5 is dead. replaced by the always-on culture. The challenge for the modern person is that there is no longer a physical factory to leave. Sarah's success came from creating artificial boundaries. By closing her laptop at 5:01 p.m., she was essentially leaving the factory. This allowed her brain to recover. Elias, by contrast, never truly left work, but he never truly started it either. He existed in a quote zone of semi-productivity and semi-guilt. Now, an interlude, connecting the theory to the story. Why did Sarah finish her library while Elias failed? Sarah viewed time as a limited tool. Elias viewed it as an infinite ocean. Sarah respected the end of her day as much as the beginning. She prioritized output over activity. Welcome to Chapter 3, The Psychology of Procrastination, where we explore why Elias waited. If you asked Elias during month 3 why he hadn't started the blueprints, he wouldn't admit, "I'm lazy." Instead, he would say, "I'm not inspired yet," or "I need to do more research." This is the procrastination paradox. It feels like preparation, not slacking off. Let's delve into a concept known as the amygdala hijack. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is fundamentally an emotion management problem. Neurologically, when Elias looked at the blank canvas, his amygdala, the brain's fear center, perceived a threat. The project was so large, prestigious, and tied to his ego that the fear of failing was completely paralyzing. To cope with this overwhelming fear, his brain sought a quote, safe and immediate dopamine hit. Activities like scrolling through architectural forums or reorganizing his pens gave him a sense of doing something, without the risk of being judged on the actual high-stakes work. This behavior is known as productive procrastination, doing low-value tasks to avoid the one high-value task that truly matters. Next, we examine the conflict between the present self versus the future self. In psychology, this phenomenon is referred to as hyperbolic discounting. Our brains are hardwired to prioritize immediate rewards, such as the comfort of a coffee break, over far-off rewards like a finished library 6 months away. Elias saw his future self as a different person, a hero who would somehow possess more discipline than he did today. Sarah, on the other hand, realized that her future self would be just as tired and easily distracted as she was in the present moment. Therefore, she tricked her brain by breaking the project into microtasks. She didn't try to design a library on day 1. Instead, she measured a doorframe. By making the task small, she bypassed the amygdala's fear response. Now we transition to Chapter 4, The Architect's Frameworks, Tools for Mastery. While Elias was drowning in inspiration, Sarah was applying 3 specific mental models that acted as the scaffolding for her success. The first tool is 4.1, the Eisenhower Matrix, which focuses on urgent versus important tasks. Sarah categorized every task into 4 quadrants based on urgency and importance. Quadrant 1, urgent and important, included the actual drafting of the library. Quadrant 2, not urgent but important, involved research, rest, and long-term planning. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important, consisted of interruptions and minor emails. Quadrant 4, neither urgent nor important, included distractions like mindless scrolling. Elias lived in Quadrant 1, dealing with crises, and Quadrant 4, getting lost in distractions. Sarah lived in Quadrant 2. By focusing on the important but not urgent phase early on, she prevented tasks from becoming urgent later. Next is 4.2, the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20th rule. Sarah knew that 20% of her efforts would produce 80% of the results. She identified the structural core and floor plan as the, quote, critical 20%. She perfected those first. Elias, conversely, spent 3 weeks choosing the font for the library signage, a task that represented only 1% of the project's value. He was working, but he wasn't producing. Our final framework is 4.3, Parkinson's Law, the expanding gas of work. Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Since Elias gave himself 6 months of open time, the task felt vague and massive. Sarah, however, used artificial deadlines. She told herself the structural draft must be done by Friday. By shrinking the available time, she forced her brain to focus on efficiency. We now transition to the interlude, the turning point. In the middle of month 4, a storm caused a 2-day power outage in both studios. Elias panicked, having no buffer. Those 2 lost days meant the difference between a finished roof and a hole in the ceiling. He felt like a victim of bad luck. Sarah smiled. 2 weeks ahead of schedule, she spent those 2 days reading by candlelight. She hadn't just managed time, she had managed risk. This is a repetition of scene 35, so we will skip it and move on to the next chapter. Welcome to Chapter 5, Biological Rhythms, Managing Energy, Not Just Minutes. Elias's biggest mistake was a lack of timing. He treated his brain like a light bulb, while Sarah treated hers like a battery that needs a specific recharge cycle. This is a repetition of scene 40, so we will proceed to the next section. Let's explore 5.1, the circadian rhythm, larks versus owls. Sarah discovered she was a lark. Her peak mental clarity was between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. She guarded these hours, focusing on her most difficult calculations when her brain was at 100% capacity. Elias thought he was an owl, doing hard work at 2 a.m. However, he was actually suffering from revenge bedtime procrastination. He felt he hadn't owned his day during the daylight hours, so he stayed up late to reclaim a sense of control. What was the result? He was working with a brain at 20% capacity, making mistakes that took twice as long to fix the next morning. Now let's discuss ultradian rhythms and the 90-minute rule. Our brains operate in 90-minute cycles of high-frequency activity, followed by a 20-minute dip. Sarah utilized the 90-minute block, a concept similar to the Pomodoro technique. She would work intensely for 90 minutes, then physically leave her desk to walk, stretch, or simply relax. This active recovery allowed her mental battery to jump back to 90% for the next work block. In contrast, Elias sat for 6 hours straight, believing that simply sitting there equaled working. Chapter 6 explores the digital fortress and how to build a wall against distraction. In the modern era, the greatest thief of time isn't a person, it's a notification. We will now examine the cost of task switching. Every time Elias's phone buzzed with a like or a news alert, he looked at it for only 4 seconds. However, science shows it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to return to deep focus after an interruption. Elias wasn't just losing 4 seconds, he was losing his momentum. Sarah built a digital fortress during her deep work blocks. She placed her phone in another room, out of sight and out of mind. For her desktop, all tabs were closed except her drafting software. For communication, she set an auto-reply stating she would check messages at 4 p.m. Next, let's consider 6.2 Digital Minimalism, Cal Newport's philosophy. Sarah adopted digital minimalism, using only a paper notebook and one calendar instead of many apps. Elias, in contrast, used 5 to-do list apps, 3 project management tools, and a focus timer. He spent more time managing his tools than his work. This is the app trap, the belief that new software will solve a lack of discipline. We are now starting Chapter 7, focusing on the divide between deep work and shallow work. The library project required deep work, cognitively demanding tasks that push your abilities to the limit. Elias spent 70% of his time on shallow work, like formatting emails and networking on LinkedIn. Sarah focused on deep work, knowing the world pays for unique value, not just busyness. A library is built on structural integrity and visionary design, which is deep work, not on how quickly the architect replies to a lunch invitation, which is shallow work. The next section is an interlude, the architect's reflection. One evening, Elias saw Sarah leaving her studio, relaxed and heading to a concert. Elias, surrounded by pizza boxes, felt resentment, thinking Sarah must not care about the project as much as he did. He was wrong. She cared so much that she refused to give the project a tired, distracted version of herself. We move on to Chapter 8, Barriers to Success, Navigating the Invisible Hurdles. Even with the best tools, people get stuck. Elias struggled because of issues related to executive function and his environment. The first section of Chapter 8 covers the ADHD of modern life. Modern society has created, quote, functional ADHD through constant notifications, rewiring our brains to crave microdopamine hits. Elias was a victim of the just 1 minute trap, where a quick check turned into a 2-hour rabbit hole, driven by his brain seeking stimulation during difficult tasks. To overcome this, Sarah used environmental design, knowing her willpower was finite, so she didn't rely on it. She removed the temptation entirely by working in a library where talking and loud phone use was prohibited. She outsourced her discipline to her surroundings. The next section, 8.2, focuses on the specter of burnout. The most dangerous barrier to time management is burnout. Elias believed that working through his exhaustion was a badge of honor. However, the law of diminishing returns applies to human effort. After 50 hours of work in a week, productivity drops so sharply that the extra hours are virtually useless. Sarah viewed rest as a prerequisite for work, not a reward for it. By scheduling her time off first, she ensured she never reached emotional exhaustion. She understood that a tired architect is a dangerous architect. We now move to Chapter 9, Habit Stacking, which covers making productivity automatic. The secret to Sarah's calm was that she didn't decide to be productive every morning. She had turned her productivity into a habit. The first section of Chapter 9 is about the anatomy of an atomic habit. Based on the research of James Clear, every habit follows a 4-step loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. Sarah's cue was putting her noise-canceling headphones on. The response was opening her drafting software. The reward was a high-quality cup of coffee after the first 90-minute block. Because she did this every day, her brain associated the headphones with deep work. She didn't need motivation. She just needed to put on her headphones. We move now to Section 9.2, Habit Stacking. Sarah used habit stacking to build her routine. She would identify a current habit, like pouring her morning tea, and stack a new time management habit on top of it. The approach was, after I pour my tea, I will write down my top 3 goals for the day. By anchoring new behaviors to old ones, she bypassed the mental effort of starting something new. Elias, meanwhile, tried to reinvent his entire life every Monday morning. This led to resolution fatigue by Wednesday. We now begin Chapter 10, The Long Game, Sustainability and Legacy. As the 6-month deadline approached, the difference between the two architects became a matter of compounding interest. Let's explore Section 10.1, The Power of 1%. Sarah's 1% improvements compounded over 180 days. By the project's end, she was operating 30% more efficiently than Elias. Time management isn't about one big save. It's about the aggregation of marginal gains. Next, 10.2, the final result. The library was built. 10 years later, Sarah's library is a landmark. Elias's library was never built. He moved on, still complaining he just needs a bit more time. The tragedy of Elias is that he had the talent, but he didn't have the vessel of time management to hold it. Time management is the cup that allows the water of your talent to be useful. Without the cup, the talent just spills onto the floor and evaporates. Finally, we look at Chapter 11, The Future of Time, AI, Automation, and the Human Premium. As Elias and Sarah look toward the next decade of architecture, a new shadow looms: artificial intelligence. For many, AI feels like a threat because it can do in seconds what took a person weeks. However, the future of time management is about leveraging AI, not competing with it. Let's discuss the shift from doing to directing. In the industrial age, time was valued by manual output. In the digital age, time was valued by knowledge work. In the AI age, time is valued by judgment and curation. Elias might use AI to generate 1,000 designs, but he will still face decision fatigue. Without a framework for quality, he will drown in options. Sarah uses AI to handle shallow work, allowing her to focus on deeper tasks. AI handles technical drafting and material sourcing, freeing her for hyper-deep work. The human premium is placed on empathy, complex ethics, and original vision. Next, we explore 11.2, the sovereign individual. The future of time management is time sovereignty. We are moving from the standardized 40-hour week to a results-only work environment, or ROA. If Sarah can produce a masterpiece in 20 hours using superior tools and focus, she should not be penalized for not sitting at a desk for the other 20 hours. Time management is becoming the key to freedom, not just efficiency. We conclude with Chapter 12, the 30-day time mastery plan, moving from reader to architect. To turn this narrative into a blueprint for your life, here is the 30-day transformation plan. Phase 1 is the audit, from days 1 to 7. Use the time log. Record every 30-minute block for a week without changing anything. Determine if you are an Elias or a Sarah. Also in Phase 1, identify the leaks. Find the just 1-minute traps and note how many times you task switch per hour. Phase 2 is the foundation, from days 8 to 14. Establish the deep work block. Choose 90 minutes and protect it. This means no phone, no email, and no excuses. The shutdown ritual involves writing down your top 3 priorities for tomorrow at the end of your workday. Then, close your laptop and mentally leave the factory. Phase 3 is the architecture, from days 15 to 21. Focus on environmental design by cleaning your desk, deleting a distracting productivity app, and putting your phone in a drawer during focus blocks. Practice the no stake. Say no to one low-value meeting or social obligation to protect your quadrant 2 inches time for important non-urgent work. Phase 4 is the compounding, from days 22 to 30. Implement habit stacking by anchoring your planning routine to an existing habit, such as your morning coffee. Review and pivot. Look back at your day 1 log and assess how many deep work hours you've reclaimed. Use this extra time for rest, not more work. In conclusion, you have the choice to become the master of the clock. We started with a choice: to be the grinder, focused on brute force hours, or the builder, focused on strategic time. Time management is an act of self-respect. When Sarah managed her time, she was protecting her sanity, health, and joy, not just finishing a project. She understood that while we are all travelers in the river of time, we can be the navigators, not just the driftwood. The tragedy is spending time living someone else's priorities. Mastering your schedule allows you to reclaim your life. You stop asking where did the day go and start saying this is exactly where I chose to put it. Elias had the talent. Sarah had the time. Who will you choose to be tomorrow? Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for more content and please consider subscribing.